Last Thursday, the world held its breath. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, striking more than a dozen targets inside Iran, a move that raised fears of a wider regional war. Bitcoin instantly reacted, going from 108,000 down to 102K in a matter of hours. Critics like Peter Schiff love moments like this. They mock Bitcoin's volatility and scoff at the idea that it's a store of value. But here's the truth. Bitcoin did not collapse. It bounced back strong. As we go live this morning, Bitcoin is back to where it was when the first missiles flew. And as history tells us, this is just the beginning. Across the top 20 geopolitical risk events since Bitcoin's inception, it has outperformed both gold and stocks, averaging a 64.6% gain within 50 days, with a median of 17.3% up. Today, we're breaking down why Bitcoin thrives on chaos and what this means to you. I'm very glad to be joined today by Joel, the head of communications over at Relay in Europe. Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you, Rob?
Doing good. Yes, it's quite the weekend. Lots of headlines, but Bitcoin is strong as ever, and I think it's sort of the insurance that you want in times like this.
I think it depends on your perspective. I just saw a tweet today by Peter Schiff. He went like, like attacks and like gold stable or in the plus, Bitcoin down 2%. And we all know it just takes a couple of minutes to then flip the script. So it's always ironic if we kind of get into these situations. It's not the first and definitely not the last time we see this. But I'm eager to see with every ongoing thing how Bitcoin will react, and we can safely say so far it's doing amazing.
Absolutely. It faces these tests every single day as it trades 24/7, right? So no matter what happens in the world, Bitcoin is going to react to it and usually react to it first. So we are here today to break down Bitcoin News Weekly. Our weekly newsletter comes out every Monday morning, hitting your inbox at 7 a.m. Eastern. And I am very glad to have guests on every single Monday at 11 a.m. to break it all down. So today's headline is Geopolitical Turmoil Can't Crack Bitcoin's 100K Streak. So as we were saying, yes, I mean, this is actually the longest amount of time that Bitcoin has spent over $100,000. We are now on day 39, the 39th day in a row over 100K. So we're getting pretty used to this, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost time to pack up and, move on to other things. Gets boring, no?
Yes. The Bitcoin 100K stablecoin. Yes. So yeah, lots of news to break down. So let's jump right in. Actually, I think it's like it's better here. Yeah. So one interesting sort of heartfelt story I think is good before we get into the more nitty gritty headlines here is that Australia went to Kenya, to Kibera, actually, one of its largest slums, and filmed a video about Bitcoin being a source of financial freedom and safety in this place. Actually, I have a little video we can watch to start off today's stream.
Considered one of the largest slums in Africa, Nairobi's Kibera region may seem an unlikely candidate for a thriving Bitcoin economy. But carrying cash can be risky business here, and many of the 500,000 people who call Kibera home don't have bank accounts.
I like it because it's cheap and fast and doesn't have any transaction costs. When people pay using Bitcoin, I save that money and use cash to restock vegetables. I'd like for Bitcoin rates to continue increasing so that I can at least make a profit.
A Kenyan financial technology company called AfriBit introduced the currency to one of Kibera's neighbourhoods 3 years ago. Garbage collectors were among the first to receive payments in Bitcoin.
Bitcoin iko sawa, number one.
When you have cash in your pockets, you become a target for thieves and your life will be in danger. It's easy to use because you can go buy something by scanning.
The company said.
So yeah, you guys can go watch the rest of that video over on our X page, of course. But I thought that was a pretty interesting little story to start off the day. I mean, Bitcoin is both a top-down, but primarily a bottom-up revolution, right? And it finds you when you need it. So us in the West, we see the inflation, the printing of money, and we decided we needed an alternative savings. But in places like Africa, in Kenya, it provides financial safety, right? They don't want to carry cash at all, and Bitcoin provides them some some safety and to carry around their wealth. So yeah, did you see that story?
I honestly didn't. And when I saw the video now, I found it quite cool that the garbage collectors were the first ones to actually receive their salary or their payments in Bitcoin. And I'm eager to see how that evolves in the future, especially, maybe if we get back into a bear market. I know permables, that could be a trigger word. But it's cool to see. It's just another example of how you can actually use Bitcoin and that there's no enforcement to it like in the fiat world.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and no matter where you are in the world, Bitcoin finds a way into your life, and very, very cool to see that a news station from Australia would go all the way to Africa to cover that, right, and actually show a good side of Bitcoin when they're usually talking about FUD like energy consumption or ransomware or anything like that. So it's nice to see a positive Bitcoin story go show up on the global news. But yes, then talking about Bitcoin in everyday life, we have TFTC and Marty Bent. They launched Opportunity Cost, a privacy-focused browser extension that converts dollar prices to BTC as you browse, making it easier to think in sats. So yeah, I think Marty Bent vibe coded this with his team. And I think it's been an idea that he's had for quite some time now, but it allows you to go to sites like Amazon and you turn on this browser extension. And instead of seeing the price in dollars or your native currency, you see it in sats. Yeah, completely changing the way that you think about pricing things in Bitcoin. Gives you a feel for how much opportunity cost, what you'd be giving up in terms of Bitcoin if you actually went ahead and purchased this item. And it's I know that a lot of people, especially in bull markets, like to go on Zillow and check out houses near them and see how much Bitcoin it actually costs to get one of these guys. Have you played with this yet?
Yeah, I did install it, and I kind of did a similar thing where I checked out stuff online, and it's just another nice feeling, seeing stuff priced in sats or in Bitcoin as you see here at the house. So it's cool to see. And I didn't know that was vibe coded, so that makes it even like a little bit sweeter. It's like a side hustle thing where you had an idea and you turn it into something. But if someone hasn't installed the extension yet, go ahead and do so, because it's really a nice boost if you actually check everything in sats.
Yeah, it lets you know what you're really gives you perspective, right? And what you're giving up in terms of your stack in order to purchase that item. And of course, it's good to have as a Bitcoiner low time preferences and be willing to hold for a long time. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely took Bitcoin Twitter by storm last week, and lots of people seem to have been downloading it and having fun. So it's great to, I think, also an orange pilling tool, right, to share with your friends and family. And so, hey, this is you can actually price things in Bitcoin, and it works. That's cool. And yeah, to round out the adoption section here, we've got Rumble. The $3 billion YouTube rival will integrate Bitcoin's Lightning Network into its new wallet using Tether's open source wallet development kit, WDK, making it the first self-custodial wallet built with WDK. So what are we talking about here? Rumble and Tether have joined teams. Paulo Arduino and the Tether guys have invested heavily into Rumble Video, and Paulo is really heavy into freedom tech, right? Whether it's personal messaging with Keat, which is a peer-to-peer messaging service where it's actually your device sends messages directly to another one rather than having to go through a central server. And now the plan is for Rumble to integrate Lightning wallet into their services, right? So if you are a creator on Rumble, people can donate to you directly in Lightning or Tether, or you can get paid, I believe, by Rumble in Bitcoin straight to your wallet. So they are using this wallet development kit provided by Tether to create this Lightning wallet used on Rumble. And it is self-custodial, open source, all great words that we love to hear. And yeah, it does seem as if this ecosystem that Paulo is building out is quite impressive, and it'll be interesting to see just how much traction this wallet gets over on Rumble. Do you use Rumble much?
I do watch it Do I watch it regularly? I would say occasionally. I'm just super bad with actually watching stuff in the app, so I sometimes forget to like log in and things. But I do have a lot of subscriptions on there. What I find more fascinating about the story as a whole is as well, if for anyone who hasn't made it to Vegas, try and listen to Paolo's keynote, because there is actually a lot of, like you said, freedom stuff that Tether is doing in the background. It's not just the stablecoin guys and the dudes who obviously do good work there as well. There is a lot of stuff going on in the mining department, as you said, in the communications department. Now you get a self-custody Lightning option or a development kit for a wallet. So it's pretty cool to see. And I have a sneaky feeling that we might see a little bit more announcements like that from Tether in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they are a behemoth, right? I mean, in terms of
Mhm.
profit per employee, they're number one in the world. They've got like 150 people working for the company, and each one represents, I think, $40 million or so of
Mhm.
profit, not just revenues, right? Which actually beats OnlyFans, which is the number two company in the world for profit per employee.
Way to go, Paolo.
Yes. Yes. And so, yeah, I mean, and Paulo himself, I mean, he said numerous times that he thinks that stable coins and fiat are just a bridge to
Mm.
the hyper Bitcoinization of the world. Right. And so,
I think it kind of goes into the first story as well, where you showed the video. Obviously, they try and use Bitcoin with these things, but if you actually go to these countries, you see a lot of adoption as well in stable coins, just because they get the best of both worlds. And I'm eager to how long it will take until we transition from they use stable coins to doing everything natively on Bitcoin. But yeah, super cool to see what Tether is doing as a whole.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people in Bitcoin land are, of course, worried about the proliferation of stablecoins, right? That this is America has made it clear that they are not going to have an official one from the top down. But if you just allow all these private banks issue these
Mm,
stablecoins, they're essentially de facto CBDCs, right? They have the
mm.
right to watch all of your transactions. They can shut off your account at any time. So it is very important that as these stablecoins gain more popularity, not just with the end users, but also governments, that people are clear of the advantages and disadvantages of them, and why Bitcoin does offer an alternative that cannot be censored, cannot be shut off, and allows you to preserve some form of privacy if you do it all correctly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where Tether is a little bit, or is actually vastly different than the other stablecoin issuers, where you always see the connection to Bitcoin. And they're also trying to give back, whether it be with grants, investments, or as we see now with, the mining operation, this wallet kit. So it's cool to see that you have that. But yeah, definitely, if you're still thinking about stablecoins or Bitcoin at this point, I think you should spend a little bit more time in the books or in the podcasts or in live streams with Rob to figure out what the right choice is, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a whole wide world out there that still needs to be educated, right?
Yep,
And
that's what we're doing. Yeah.
but this education is happening, and we are happy to do our small part in it. And speaking of this conversation getting to larger and larger circles, this last week, Congressman Tom Emmer's Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act passes the House Financial Services Committee. This protects developers and service providers who don't hold funds from being misclassified as money transmitters. So, of course, in the last year of the Biden regime, or last 2 years, we saw lots of court cases, right? Whether it
Mm.
was Tornado Cash or Samurai Wallet, lots of developers were being persecuted for allowing mixing and coin joining services. So this Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act would make sure that people that provide these services would not be confused as money transmitters, because this is the key word here, right? If governments think you are a money transmitter, there are a whole bunch of laws and regulations that apply to you, and you get heavy scrutiny. But developers who are just creating protocols and ways to use your Bitcoin should not be under this category, as they're hands off, right? Once they allow these protocols off into nature, it is up into the user as to how they use them, because everything is a tool. A knife can be used to cut your dinner or to commit a crime, but you should not be going after the knife makers, even though some countries like UK might think that is the solution, right?
Yeah, definitely. And let's hope that it really leads to a quick and hopefully a soon release of the Samurai and the Tornado Cash guys, because at the end of the day, at least in my opinion now, that's a total BS that they're still sitting behind bars, or that they're still actually facing charges, depending on which of the two cases you look at. But it passed HFS, we said, so we still have some ways to go so that these guys are safe, but let's hope that it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the fact that the Samurai court case is going on at the same time that this law is being pushed forward is quite interesting. And there were some talk in the last couple of weeks of how they filed a motion to have the case just completely dismissed, right? Because behind the scenes, the government agencies were saying that, yeah, these guys are not money transmitters, but they went ahead and persecuted these guys anyway. So we must not forget the Samurai wallet developers who are undergoing this case, and it is good to keep that conversation alive. But zooming out from American politics and going over to Latin America. So Brazil advances a bill to allocate 5% of foreign exchange reserves to Bitcoin, passing its first committee. The central bank and Treasury could invest up to 18.5 billion in BTC, stored in cold wallets with biannual audits. So yeah, there was two big pieces of news to come out of Brazil in the last week. I mean, this is pretty huge, right? This is a legitimate strategic Bitcoin reserve. 18.5 billion would put you at what, like a third of a sailor, right? So that's nothing to scoff at. And that it really gives it legitimacy. I don't think we've seen many other countries take it as seriously as this. And this is some big news. But again, it's just past the first committee, and it still has a ways to go. But the other piece of news to come out of Brazil this last week that isn't too favorable for Bitcoin holders in the country is this right here. Brazil's finance ministry has scraped the monthly 35,000 real crypto tax exemption. So if you sold crypto for less than $6,300, there would be no tax on it. But this has just been scrapped. As of June 12th, all digital assets face a flat tax of 17.5% under the provisional measure 1303, replacing the previous tiered system. So I think it's pretty clear that yes, the government wants Bitcoin, but they're making it harder for the citizens to use, transact, and to use their freedom money. So yes, what do you think about Brazil's latest moves, and does it surprise you?
I mean, I'm always a little bit on the back foot with these kind of announcements, because I kind of go like, it's bullish on one end. It's interesting to see. I would say, I wouldn't say cool to see or anything. But Bitcoin is an open network. Everyone could participate as long as they apply to network rules. And then on the other hand, you have like these announcements. I would say the second announcement actually turns everyone in Brazil into a hodler. So, at the end of the day, that is also a help in adoption. But obviously, especially in countries where, as we spoke previously, you don't have as much financial freedom as you have in the West, whether that be the States or Europe or wherever, it gets hard to just hodl and to not be able to sell. So is it bullish? Yes. I'm a little bit skeptical if it would actually pass, at least the reserve bill. The other obviously has already. And we will wait to see what's happening. I just know from a lot of Brazilian Bitcoiners I met recently that there's a pretty strong community down there, also an awesome grassroots movement. So maybe a lot of that also then drives a lot of that adoption again. And it goes from the bottom up as it should be, and not from the top down. But yeah, I'm kind of mixed between the two. happy for hodlers in Brazil who can now hodl through it. But on the other hand, obviously, we will need to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, Brazil does seem to have one of the strongest Bitcoin communities in Latin America. It does seem as if, of course, crypto and stable coins are widespread across Central and South America. But in terms of Bitcoin, of course, there's El Salvador, there's Bitcoin Jungle in Costa Rica. But in terms of bottom-up Bitcoin communities, there's Bitcoin Beach in Brazil, actually, Paria. And there also seems to be a strong developer community in Brazil who are interested in Bitcoin. So yeah, it does seem as if that grassroots fuel is what is sort of pushing these bills forward and giving more light to Bitcoin in the country. When it comes to Bitcoin and taxation in Europe, I know that like Germany's got like the best deal, right? If you hold it for a year, then you don't have to pay any tax. But like, what is it in, say, France or Switzerland? Do you know?
It depends a little bit. So so obviously, you know, for the American audience, Europe is a continent, another country. We always have to clarify this a little bit. Every country has different rules. So Germany, as you said, is by far the one with the easiest rule. Hold it for a year. You don't have to pay any tax with future sales. There used to be the same law over here in Austria, but the previous government got rid of it, and they're now taxing you at 27 or 28%. And then each country is a little bit different. Switzerland is also quite flexible, as long as, you know, if you sell Bitcoin or if you trade Bitcoin, it's not the initial source of income for you, because then it would be income tax where they would tax you actually. So there's a lot of moving parts. I would say generally Germany is the only one that really has a very simple rule, and all others you really actually have to get a tax consultant to not do any harm to yourself. And there's unfortunately not a lot of change from a legislation standpoint. They really are keen on actually keeping these things or actually increasing them, as we've seen with announcements in Italy. There has also been recently an announcement out of Spain that they want to go even down the unrealized tax gain thing. So pretty scary, but again, you know, positives looking at it, they just are enforcing the hodlers. And I think as long as you don't have the unrealized tax gain stuff and things, there is not a lot of panic over here in Europe. But yeah, who knows? Maybe for some reason we would all adopt the Germany model, but for now, I'll doubt it that will happen coming out of Brussels or Frankfurt.
And why do you think Germany has such a cool way of doing it when it comes to taxes and Bitcoin?
I think Germany is very much also a Bitcoin country. So if you actually watch at the 21 community, which is like a German-speaking community that came out in 2020, there's a lot of meetups happening, a lot of development going on. I think Germany is, correct me if I'm wrong, like number 1 or 2 in public known nodes and stuff. So you have a lot of strong community there, and I just think at one point that pressure was enough that actually there wasn't a lot of, pressure against the community from the government side of things. And I don't know, maybe someone at the tax office made the calculation saying, hey, if we just allow these guys to be here, they'll increase their purchasing power to stay in the country. They help out with economics. Or if it was just down to luck. But from a community perspective, I would say it's pretty big. Yeah. So that obviously had a bigger impact. I think I'll stick to that story.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how do you say 21 in German?
21.
21, yes.
Yeah,
to see the map of all the different meetups across Germany, it's really amazing to see. It's completely covered across the country. So shout out to the German Bitcoiners. But yes, so talking about a jurisdiction that is cool to Bitcoin to one that is not. Connecticut, just this last week, passes HB 7082, banning the state from accepting, holding, or investing in Bitcoin or any virtual currency. So we wrote a piece on this over at bitcoinnews.com. And yeah, what was pretty insane is that every single member of the legislature voted for Canada's anti-strategic Bitcoin reserve law. It passed unanimously, not a single dissenting vote. So yeah, I mean, Connecticut is a state part of the tri-state region here in the Northeast. You got New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Lots of Wall Street bigwigs live in Connecticut and like to store their wealth there. But it's funny that despite the fact they're at the cutting edge of finance, they are well behind what is happening in the world of Bitcoin. So, and I mean, but that's an amazing thing about America, right? Is the federal system where different states can enact different laws. We've got the Bitcoin Reserve passing in Texas, New Hampshire, Arizona. Some of these reserves are better than others, one could say, but still they are leaning into it, whereas Connecticut has completely shut themselves off from the beauty that is Bitcoin. Yeah, it's
maybe it's the proximity to Massachusetts, with Elizabeth Warren being around the corner and stuff. I don't know if that maybe had an impact for Connecticut. But yeah, as you said, for everyone to say basically, nah, we're not going to do this, that's actually pretty sad if you look at it from that perspective. Isn't there like one assistant in the background of one of these politicians going like, hey, I took a look at it and it's actually quite decent. But yeah, I guess everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The CIO of Bitwise, Matt Hogan, said the hedge fund managers got so upset they couldn't beat Bitcoin that they had to ban a strategic Bitcoin reserve from the state. And it's an interesting point you brought up that their proximity to Massachusetts and Elizabeth Warren and her anti-crypto army maybe had something to do with it. If you actually look at surveys of the state of Connecticut, comparing Yankees fans and Red Sox fans, the two baseball teams from Boston and New York City, it is split exactly down the middle. So you definitely have a strong New England influence in Connecticut, even if it is a member of the tri-state area. So yes, we've got Connecticut out, Texas in when it comes to strategic Bitcoin reserves, but they will probably learn their folly within the next year or so, if not sooner. But one guy who has gone completely all in on Bitcoin within the last year is Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, of course, launching their Bitcoin ETF in January of 2024. And their Bitcoin ETF has become the fastest ever to hit $70 billion of assets under management, over 666,000 BTC, reaching this milestone 5 times faster than gold. And I think this chart is a picture that speaks 1,000 words. Yeah, I mean, we've had these plateaus, but there's also these long periods of just vertical growth in the BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. And it's just, they did it 5 times faster, right? I think it took 341 days for it to reach 70 billion, whereas it took GLD 1,691 days to hit the same milestone. Absolutely amazing performance. And yeah, so now BlackRock launched a Bitcoin ETF in Europe, did they not, in the last couple of months? Yes.
Yeah, I think that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that.
Oh yeah. Have you heard any news about it? Are people interested in it?
The funny thing is, and again, I think this has a lot to do with the cultural differences, where in the States, you're just basically in charge of your pension and you have to learn early how to invest. We all know, what arguably the best option is for that. But in Europe, you don't have that. We have our state pensions and you allocate a little bit here and there. And ETPs, as we have them in Europe, they just never took off, because there's actually also a Bitcoin ETP by, it's a German company, it's one in Frankfurt, I think Deutsche Digital Assets or something was its name. They actually launched one back in 2018 and it just never really gained traction. And even after the news here, for my job at Relay, I often also, try to reach out to TradFi people and go like, hey, what's up in your land and how do you perceive Bitcoin? They had no clue that actually BlackRock, and I mean, it's BlackRock at the end of the day. It should be like, their big daddy in their world is launching a product like that, and there was absolutely no interest. So it's very keen to see that in that perspective for paper Bitcoin, there's a lot of interest in the US and especially on Wall Street. And I would also be curious of a breakdown of the 70 billion in AUM, where you would actually see, how many pension funds are holding it, how many unions are holding it, or is it more of a retail individual holder, an institutional holder perspective? So if anyone's out there of knowledge on how to break that down, that would be amazing. But it's, as you said, there are phases where nothing is happening, and then there are phases where it's just ripping. And I guess we're in another ripping phase.
Yeah, it feels like it. In terms of the breakdown, I remember hearing a couple months ago that the vast majority of holders of the IBIT ETF were retail, right? I think it was 80% were retail investors, but we've also got the big institutions too. Paul Tudor Jones, it was released that as of March 31st, their latest filing with the SEC, they have $222 million worth of the Bitcoin ETF, right? That's their second largest position, with their first largest position being offset with a large amount of puts, right? So this is the largest pure play in his portfolio is Bitcoin. And he was just on Bloomberg saying that you want a portfolio relegated for risk for what's appropriate for you, but between stocks, Bitcoin, and gold, right? But he's got pretty much double the amount of Bitcoin that he has gold in his portfolio, so he's putting his money where his mouth is. And yeah, when guys like PTJ are down with Bitcoin, I think we might be on the right track. We might be on the right track here. In other market news, we've got Stripe. They acquired the crypto wallet infrastructure firm Privy, which supports 75 million wallets plus over 1,000 teams, signaling a deeper dive into Bitcoin wallets and stablecoin payments. So Stripe, of course, is one of the largest point of sales ways to purchase anything, whether online or in person. And this comes just a couple of weeks after Square and Jack Dorsey's company announced that they are rolling out Bitcoin payments on all of their point of sales machines. So yeah, it seems as if these legacy payment providers are finally diving into Bitcoin, into stable coins, and crypto payments in general. Did you hear this news? Does this surprise you? And what do you think is coming down the road in terms of payments and Bitcoin in everyday life?
It really did surprise me, because I remember interviewing the head of something markets at Stripe in 2019 or 2018. I think it was 2019, where I actually also asked him about, are you eager to integrate Bitcoin payments, for e-commerce solutions or whatever it is, checkout links and these kind of things. This was in a time, pre, having stuff like Albi, for example, or other solutions. And they were very firmly against it, because they were actually ride the wave up in 2017. They would see the interest, they would activate it, they would get rid of it. They had an in-house solution. It was kind of a little bit wonky. So to now see Stripe getting back into it and actually doing it through an acquirement and not actually doing the thing outright in-house is quite interesting. I'm just curious, will they stick around once, you turn into a bear? And for anyone listening, please don't understand me wrong. I'm not like a perma bear. I'm just going like, once we're then into hyper winter again, are these companies going to stick around? So I think that will be the big questions. But I guess if you spend money for another company, it's a pretty strong signal.
Yeah, I think they spent a lot of money for these guys. I mean, they're behind Hyperliquid. That's just Farcaster. They've got their hands in a lot of different crypto plays, and to show this much interest and to put out the money to buy something this big, it shows that I think we're going to see Bitcoin accepted here in a lot more places a lot sooner than we might have thought. Which is cool. It's just we gotta ignite that culture, right? We gotta make sure that people understand that spending Bitcoin on things that you want or need is cool. It's acceptable. Bitcoin is money. It should be used as such, and don't be afraid to spend and then replace, and hopefully one day earn in Bitcoin, so you don't even have to think in those terms anymore. But speaking about spending and earning Bitcoin, we've got Coinbase. This week, they launched their One Card in collaboration with Amex, offering up to 4% back in Bitcoin per purchase, depending on asset holdings on Coinbase. So we've got this credit card here that they actually jacked the Bitcoin Genesis block as the design of the front of this thing, and on the surface, it sounds absolutely great. Earn up to 4% back on every purchase, right? I mean, that's pretty impressive. Gemini just launched a Bitcoin back credit card that also provides 4%, but only on certain purchases, I believe, such as gas. It gives you 4% back. But there are stipulations with this 4%. They make you hold a certain amount of assets on Coinbase. In order to get that 4%. So, I mean, you have to pay a fee in order to get this credit card. And you also have to hold a certain amount of crypto on Coinbase in order to get that 4%. Raising some questions. People are like, is this a rehypothecation scheme? Is Coinbase short Bitcoin? And that is why they want to incentivize you to keep holding it there in order to get this 4%. So yeah, what do you think about this Coinbase credit card, and is it sketchy to you?
It kind of feels sketchy. It feels a little bit like one of these Bitcoin affinity scams where, they use Bitcoin to market. And, as someone who also works in marketing, I kind of get it. I understand the idea behind it. But then again, like, you have to hold certain assets. I'm guessing you have to hold certain assets which are quite favorable to Coinbase in terms of revenue. So it kind of goes into like, I don't know. And I did not know, for example, that the Gemini card was only accepted for specific use cases, like, as you said, gas and stuff. And with the Coinbase one here, I don't know. Coinbase kind of feels like, I saw a tweet before going live that a hotel company in Japan now owns more Bitcoin than Coinbase actually does. And they had the head start, like way of a head start. And I mean, if you know the story, Coinbase used to be a Bitcoin only company. Back in the day, you could only buy Bitcoin on there. So it's kind of sad to see from that perspective. And with these card offerings, I'm always interested what the adoption really is like. If people are actually using it, or if it's just like, okay, I'll get it, I'll buy a few things, and then I'll just forget about it and maybe have like a cool Genesis block card in my wallet to show for friends. If I try an orange pill, maybe that's the reason behind it. Maybe that helps. But yeah, if I would have the option, I think, me personally, I wouldn't probably go for it.
Yeah, I mean, some people were saying that having the Genesis block on your credit card is horrible for OPSEC. You're just making yourself a walking target. But then again, I mean, how many people actually know what the Genesis block actually looks like if you're coming out with a wrench? But yes, I mean, there are lots of questions when it comes to this credit card. And yeah, you're right. The news came out this morning that Metaplanet, the Japanese former real estate hotel firm, becoming a Bitcoin Treasury company within the last year, of course, they have now amassed 10,000 Bitcoin, surpassing Coinbase's 9,600 or so Bitcoin, which really is, we posted today, it's a generational bag fumble, right? Because Coinbase has been into Bitcoin since Bitcoin was around $6. Right. Yeah. Think about how much Bitcoin they could have if they were focused on the truth rather than peddling Fartcoin, as they recently listed.
Which always gets me. Like, they're a regulated company, and if you're a regulated company, you have a huge oversight in terms of compliance, legal, and whatever you need to do. And they're still promoting stuff like this, which is obviously not a real asset at this point. It's just a meme somewhere out in the internet, and for some reason it caught hype. So that's always the part where I kind of go like, yeah, that they had the choice, as you said, between, honest and ideally perfect form of money. And they went for jokes on the internet. So yeah, I think biggest fumble of the decade, maybe even of the century, I think is the perfect description.
Yeah, for their shareholders, for certainly, but Brian seems to be doing all right. He's got a mansion or two. But speaking of Brian, I've got a video for us to watch of him speaking at their Coinbase Summit last week, where they announced his credit card, but he also kept honing in on this one point. Let's listen to what he has to say.
New products, but there was something you said on stage that caught my attention. You said that Bitcoin could become the world's reserve currency because of the US debt situation, which is ballooning. How realistic is that?
Well, it really is unclear at this point, but one thing that is clear is that democracies around the world are having trouble getting deficit spending under control. And that can only, if you study history, right, the changing world order, different empires, like who had the reserve currency at different moments in time, once you decouple currency from hard commodities, the inevitable story is they get overprinted and extend, right? And so I think right now, to be clear, I want the US to remain the reserve currency status. I think a strong America is very important for the world, and I think cryptocurrency is helping the dollar enormously with things like USDC and stablecoins. But if the debt situation doesn't get fixed, I do think that eventually Bitcoin will have to become the reserve currency for better or worse. It's not going to be the Chinese RMB because I think they have their own debt problems. And it's not a coincidence that as we're seeing all-time highs in US debt, we're seeing all-time highs in Bitcoin.
We had a great chart in there too.
So yeah, I mean, he's coming out and laying it all out there, right? This is a man who has gotten quite cozy with the government over the last couple of years, and I think this is a great example. This weekend Trump had his military parade, and it was sponsored by Coinbase. So I mean, it's pretty wild that we have at the same time the head sponsor of the U.S. Army 250 anniversary parade is the CEO is coming out and saying that, hey, the U.S. dollar is at risk of losing its reserve currency status to Bitcoin. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but if you kind of read between the lines, where he kind of goes like, "Oh, I still like the dollar, and we need the stability, and basically crypto good for America." I think he's kind of revealing his true face. Again, as I said, I think it's a lot of the affinity scamming going on if they actually use Bitcoin. So that could be it. He also said something very similar at the WEF earlier this year, where he also went into, nation states are interested and so on, wealth funds, and we will see more reserves, and we'll at one point see the world reserve status. So again, I don't know. Is it just marketing to get people to Coinbase? And someone in the comments actually wrote, you have to pay for Coinbase One Basic, which is like $5 a month, to be eligible for the card. So there again, there's like this thing. We drag you in with Bitcoin and then actually pay us. So I don't know. I just don't get that feeling away from actually that being the reason why they use it that much. But on the other hand, it gets Bitcoin's attention into the eyes of a lot of people. You have to also celebrate the small portions and wins. And it makes our job a little bit more creative in then converting them from like, okay, you got your Coinbase account, but now get rid of it and actually buy Bitcoin only and get it on to your self-custodial setup. So yeah, another challenge, I guess, and another interesting point to wait and see how things evolve there.
Yes, and at this portion of the show, I would like to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in. If you are on YouTube, please hit that like button, subscribe to Bitcoin News. Really appreciate you guys tuning in with us every Monday morning. Really, it means a lot. And also, we would like to say a big shout out to our main sponsor here. We have got Rhino Bitcoin. So we say, don't use Coinbase when you can use Rhino. They are our lead sponsor, and Rhino is an all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. There you can buy or sell your Bitcoin instantly. You can send sats anywhere using the Lightning Network, and you can get that Bitcoin and withdraw it straight to cold storage. Even turn sats into gift cards or link to a Casa multisig, all inside one sleek interface. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon you'll pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement without even leaving the app. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or tap the link below in the description. Use code Bitcoin News and Rhino will drop you $10 in free Bitcoin into your account today. Secure your stack with Rhino right now, and let's get back to the rest of the show. Thank you very much, Rhino. We appreciate you helping us out here at Bitcoin News with this show. And Joel, we still got some more headlines to go through. How are you feeling?
Good. It's been a busy week. It's always good if you have a lot of news items for Bitcoin.
Lots of things to go into. So, we've got our Treasury section here. And of course, the granddaddy of all these treasuries in the Bitcoin world is MicroStrategy, now known as Strategy. And they have a new villain on the streets. And that his name goes by Jim Chenos, the renowned short seller. So he's got a big short position on MSTR. And the funny thing is that he describes his strategy very simply. I'm doing what Staler advocates. I'm selling MSTR and buying Bitcoin. So he believes that the MNAV, the premium on MSTR's Bitcoin, needs to shrink. Right now, they are trading at essentially, I think, 2.1. It's the valuation of their company compared to the underlying Bitcoin in which they hold. And this guy, Jim Chenos, believes that MNAV is going to shrink towards 1 eventually. So his play is to short MSTR and buy Bitcoin and collect the spread as that MNAV compresses to 1. So do you know about this guy? He's a pretty famous short seller. He's been shorting China for a very long time. I don't know how too well that's played out for him. But yeah, now he's turned his sights on Michael Saylor and is going on a publicity tour to tell the world that he is shorting them. Yeah, what do you think about this?
I think you just said the right word. It's a publicity tour, and that's the whole reason behind it, because they can then, sell actually their own businesses. What I'm really interested in is if he's saying I'm actually selling MSTR to buy Bitcoin. Let's say for whatever reason his short strategy plays out. Is he actually buying Bitcoin again? Did he really understand it, and did he understand the value proposition? Or is it just another marketing claim to get people in to his own company? I'm again guessing more on the second one. But yeah, it's interesting to see with strategy how just that one decision now 5 years ago has led into, the entire financial media industry actually looking at them, and for a big portion also Wall Street looking at that company again and becoming lively again. It was dead. I think Saylor once tweeted about how far they fell below with the share price and now where they're at. So that's interesting to see. And with any short seller, they have the option. All they need to do is wait and see if it plays out. And with him especially, again, I'm curious if he actually stacks Bitcoin or if it's just another falsy promise.
Yeah, being a short seller seems like such an awful existence, right? I mean, you got to be a negative Nancy. Your gains are capped, right? A company can only go down 100%, whereas it can go up an infinite amount if you make the right play.
And you have to factor in the other side as well. If you get short squeezed, there is no top for that. You can get short squeezed to the max. So it's definitely a stressful time if you're a short seller. I think that's probably the reason why not a lot of people do it at the end of the day, or not do it successfully.
Yeah. But I guess it gets you on news slots, right? It does get you on TV when you take a big bet against something. And that's what he's doing. But a lot of companies around the world right now are taking a big bet on Bitcoin, including France's The Blockchain Group. So they launched their 300 million euro ATM style capital raise. And they also secured a 95% approval on their shareholder vote to raise 10 billion euros to accelerate their Bitcoin treasury strategy. So, whether it is MicroStrategy here in America, we've got the Blockchain Group over in France, the Smarter Web Group in UK, MetaPlanet in Japan. There are clear winners in each one of these countries that are just taking the market by storm. And the Blockchain Group has been one of the best performing stocks in France over the last 6 months, if not the best performing stock. And now they want to raise 10 billion euros. That's huge. That is absolutely huge.
I was just about to say, even the 300 million for European standards is huge. And if they're not going for 10 billion, it's another level up. Would be interesting to see how that plays out if they actually get to 10 billion. If they even get to a billion, I'd be surprised, in all honesty.
Yeah, but they seem to they're doing it. They're making splashes, and also in the world of treasury companies making splashes, we have Stephen Lupka, former head of private wealth at Swan, joins David Bailey's Bitcoin treasury firm Nakamoto as VP of Investor Relations. So Lupka is well known. He's one of the top guys over at Swan previously, and he has been recruited to join David Bailey of Bitcoin Inc.'s new treasury company, Nakamoto. So Nakamoto, I think their plan is a little bit different from the rest of these companies. I mean, of course, the best Bitcoin treasury companies have a operating business that provides them with revenue and profit, and they can take that profit, put into Bitcoin, and grow their savings over time. That allows them to have more optionality and invest in other things and grow their business and be productive part of society. Nakamoto, as far as I understand, they are going to not only be investing in Bitcoin, but also be investing in other Bitcoin treasury companies. So it starts to create this interesting flywheel of MNAV arbitrage across the world and trying to just juice these numbers, right? I mean, there is clear demand for these Bitcoin treasury companies, but it does seem as if we're entering into this new era where these stocks are gaining a lot of the attention, and unfortunately it seems as if a lot of the new people, class of 2025, are more exposed to these Bitcoin treasury companies than they are to Bitcoin in cold storage. So yeah, what do you feel about that? Is that what you're seeing?
Most definitely. I see it a lot in my friend circle, even with the ETF launch. I've got a lot of friends who work in TradFi, unfortunately, I would add. And even when the ETFs launched, they were kind of going like, yeah, I get the thesis of holding Bitcoin outright, but, the ETF is easier. And with this one, it's a little bit the same thing. Like, you can hold Bitcoin and you can, enjoy its performance, or you can go down the other road and go, okay, I will buy shares into these companies that basically do Bitcoin leverage ×2 into other companies as well. So I don't know. It's a weird time, I guess. It was kind of inevitable, I think, once the TradFi world got into Bitcoin, that you would see their own, let's call it layers of Bitcoin, whether it's an ETF or a Bitcoin treasury company. But again, curious to see how they will react in the future. I think there was an interview with David where he went, if we go through a certain threshold with the MNAV, we're definitely also going to sell Bitcoin. So they're not holding on to it forever, as for example, Strategy is doing. So is it then like a proper treasury company, or is it more like a trading company that actually has figured out a way in the markets? That would be interesting to see. But for now, they seem to get the right people, and it seems a little bit like the whole Bitcoin influencer thing is also an important aspect to these Bitcoin treasury companies, at least for what we're seeing now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, each one needs their mascot. We've got Dylan at MetaPlanet, Natalie Brunel at Semler, Saylor, of course, of Strategy, and now we've got David Bailey. He was, of course, founded this Nakamoto, but they've got Stephen Lupka, and I think that he's going to be a very outward public face for this company. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this in terms of influencers joining these Bitcoin treasury companies and being the mascot? Do you think that it's gonna keep growing like that? And do you expect a call one of these days to be the face of a Bitcoin treasury company?
Oh no, hell no. I kind of already am from a proper Bitcoin company, so I will actually stick to that any day. Will it increase? I could see it potentially, because at the end of the day, there's also a lot of big dough involved in these kind of deals. So it is appealing if you have a big audience. But for any influencers, I think if you have the choice, just stick to regular Bitcoin. It's that much easier, and it's also that much more fun.
Agreed. Of course, every cycle we see new ways that people like to try to get leverage on Bitcoin, right? Outperform Bitcoin, and this is the one right now. We have this comment over on YouTube from Satwise, who is often tunes in. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. He says, all these new treasury companies are going to be a huge anchor to Bitcoin if we have another traditional 80% bear market. But I really think those days are over and we won't go under $100,000 ever again. So, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, Strategy, if they ever sold a Bitcoin, that would be a huge dent to their whole narrative and everything that they're doing. But I mean, as we said, David Bailey made it clear that they will sell some Bitcoin if their MNAV goes below 1. So how diamond-handed are these Bitcoin treasury companies? We're yet to really find out. But they're definitely going to help us push to a new zip code when it comes to Bitcoin over the next 12 to 18 months. Yes. Getting back to the newsletter, we are heading towards the end of our time here, and there are a few pieces I would really like to get into. And what we started off this show was talking about how Bitcoin performed during times of geopolitical turmoil. So, of course, we've got the text here from Peter Schiff saying that, oil prices jump 5% and S&P futures fall 1.5% when Israel attacks Iran. But in response, investors are seeking a safe haven and buy gold, sending it up 0.85%. Meanwhile, investors dump Bitcoin, pushing it down 2%. How can anyone consider Bitcoin to be a digital version of gold? Well, Peter, we got to zoom out. And BlackRock did our homework for us and looked at some of the largest geopolitical events since 2020. And hey, look at this, a U.S.-Iran escalation back in January 2020. What happened 10 days after that event? The stocks were up 2%, gold was flat, Bitcoin was up 12%. 60 days later, Bitcoin was up 20%, where gold was up 6% and stocks were down 7%. So if you look at this chart, where's the majority of the green? The majority of the green is within Bitcoin, and especially if you take a longer time frame. And then we've got this amazing stat from our friend Andre Dragos over at Bitwise Europe. Across the top 20 geopolitical risk events since Bitcoin's inception, Bitcoin has gained an average of 64.6% within 50 days after the event, with the median gain of 17.3%, outperforming both gold and stocks. So yeah, I mean, over the long frame, it seems as if about 2 months after any of these big shocks, Bitcoin has rebounded and is outperforming everything else. What reason in your mind would you put behind that outperformance?
It's a good question. I think now from a let's call it a trading aspect, I think if a lot of people actually dump their Bitcoin, if stuff like this happens, it's just because of lack of knowledge and they look at it as a risk on asset. And you have to get rid of it immediately. But then on the other hand, a lot of that liquidity with a lot of that activity, I think, is a big help in actually getting Bitcoin back up again. And just its historical context, it has proven time in, time out again that it's not that, it's coming back, or it does come back every time, and it has a lot of strong attributes. And actually, the only attributes you can also verify, because our gold is scarce in that form as well. But do you actually know how much there is out there? No, you don't. Do you know if your gold bar is proper gold or if it's just something else wrapped in a gold wrapper? You can also not figure that out quite easily. You have to know with certain tests. So I think a lot of that mix comes together and then results in a lot of these performances. I'm always fascinated by that chart by BlackRock. I would be interested to actually also add the money supply expansion on top of what is actually going on with the performance, if that also had an impact. So that would be a cool thing to see. But yeah, the Bitwise research was also quite fascinating. And I don't know, if there's political tension somewhere, it's just time to lean back a little bit, wait a couple of weeks, and you'll see the result with Bitcoin anyway. I don't know why Peter's bringing it up again. Probably, again, an affinity scam to just, get people into his fund that is not performing.
Yes, his number one marketing tactic, of course, is to bash Bitcoin at any chance he gets. But if he just took a couple days, he would say that he's not, his predictions were not panning out the way he thought they would. And I think you're right. A big thing is when we have these geopolitical events, what is the main answer of the government? It is to print money, right? Especially if we look at the COVID outbreak in March 2020, everything went down. Stocks were down 20%, Bitcoin was down 25%. But then within 2 months, I mean, they were already sending out stimmy checks, right? And that that fiat was finding its way into people's hands, and people were trading that fiat for Bitcoin. I know I did that. And
just about to say, shout out to everyone who still holds on to the stimmy check. You did well.
Yes. Let's bring that up. Stimmy check, Bitcoin.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, you're up 1,512%. You outperformed everybody on Wall Street if you just held that $1,200 and put it into Bitcoin and haven't sold yet. Congrats to you if you are one of those.
I was actually curious during that time, how did the stimulus work? Did you just attach your bank account number and it got routed in there, or did you like have redeem schedules or something how you could actually get that?
Everybody with like a social security number got sent the check, and
Jeez.
it said Donald Trump's name was on it. He made sure that his name was on that $1,200
And then you
check.
just check it. Okay, nice.
It's got the Statue of Liberty and then Trump's name right next to it. So yeah, that was how it went down. But yeah, it showed up in the mail. You scanned it into your bank account, and then you sent it over to the exchange to get some Bitcoin. That's how it went down. Yeah, wild times, and it does feel as if the money printer is going to be turned back on soon enough. One other piece that we can cover here is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is reportedly among Trump's top candidates to replace Fed Chair Jerome Powell when Powell's term ends in May 2026. So yeah, Jerome Powell, he was the man who was in charge during COVID, during the money supply expanding by 40% within 18 months. He also faced 9% inflation back in 2022 and had to boost interest rates up to over 5% in order to combat that. And inflation has come down on a year-over-year basis since then. And Jerome Powell, I think, is very, very proud of that fact that he's been able to bring that nominal inflation down. But we've got Trump in as president, and he likes to print. There's no doubt about that. And he wants somebody who is more amenable to his plans to be in charge of the big money printer over at the Fed. And that is his right-hand man, Scott Bessent. And so, I mean, we've still got a year or so until Powell's term is up. There was a lot of talk of whether Trump would just straight up try to replace him, though it is not within his constitutional ability to do so. But if you float this idea that Scott Bessent is going to be replacing him, then essentially you have a shadow Fed chair, right? And anything that Powell goes out and says on news can be countered by Scott Bessent right after, if people know that he is the man who is lined up to be the next one. So
I like one of the comments by Satwise that it was something to do with the proof of reserves from Sailor differently, but his favorite candidate to replace Jerome Powell is actually Ron Paul. I think he wouldn't be Fed chair for long. If Ron Paul got in, he would get rid of the Fed immediately. So it would be funny. It would be a funny selection.
And the Fed. Yes. Well, before we go, we've got some housekeeping to do here. Every week we do a giveaway. Your chance to win some sats if you answer the trivia. So go ahead, go on to Bitcoin News Weekly, check out our newsletter, subscribe, sign up for the trivia, click the right answer, and you'll be entered into the competition. These are the right winners from last week, those who answered correctly on the trivia. So let's see who won the sats from last week. Big winner, big winner, big winner. We have, let's see who it is. Catherine, 30046. Amazing. Thank you so much for participating. We will reach out to you and get you your sats for sure. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our hour here. Joel, yeah, any closing thoughts? What's your vibe right now as Bitcoin returns to where it was before this whole escalation in the Middle East? And we've got all these treasury companies just scooping up all this Bitcoin.
I think with all of the craziness that's going on, whether it be the war situation, the macro things, or even these Bitcoin treasuries, I'm just vibing at this point. You know, as you said earlier in the show, Bitcoin has been above 100K for a record-breaking 39 days, I think it was, right? So I mean, how can you not enjoy this time and actually look at it and go like, it's the stable coin now, it's the 100K stable coin, and not enjoy what's going on there. And you know, whatever happens after that words, if we go up even higher or if we go into another dump, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to lose out if you just invest time into Bitcoin. So that's what I'm doing as well now. You know, there are certain things I'm just more interested in Bitcoin, and just having the time to figure that stuff out, to look at it, to then occasionally, after like an attack or something, check the price again and see like, oh, okay, it's back to what it was before. At least if you measure in fiat, because we obviously all know if you measure it in Bitcoin, it always stays the same. But yeah, just it's a cool vibe right now. I think it's not as hectic as we usually were in previous days, and the 100K thing seems to be the new normal for everyone. And they also seem to pretty chill. So we'll see how that evolves.
Yes, we are at a new phase here. We're comfortably over 100K. Companies around the world are accumulating. We've got Brazil possibly joining in the party, and we've got to get, of course, figure out how Trump and his boys want to accumulate Bitcoin in a budget neutral way for the American government. So yes, on all different levels, from the Kenyan neighborhoods and villages using Bitcoin to the state level to the corporation level. Everybody wants some. So be sure to get yours, study Bitcoin, accumulate Bitcoin, and live with a Bitcoin mindset. I want to thank you so much, Joel, for joining us this week. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
The best place is probably on Twitter. So my handle is _JKLNZ or Z, last letter in the alphabet. And if you want to find out more about Relay, just look up Relay app. And you'll also find us on all the socials and on our website. And basically, whenever you have an internet connection, where you can find something out about us.
Beautiful. All right, Joel, thank you so much. And I would love to have you on again.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.